Red Cloud Financial Services is your preeminent source for mining industry opportunities. The team provides a unique tailored marketing program dedicated to reaching the right people from its mining-focused global network, giving clients access to industry-leading events and conferences, retail and institutional marketing, plus an in-house growth-driven digital agency. Red Cloud Financial Services has access to some of the mining industry's most notable companies and CEOs. For more information, visit redcloudfs.com.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Digging Deeper. We have a special guest today. It's Barton Gold out of Australia. This is a very exciting gold project that's been developing, getting a lot of attention. We're very excited to have the Managing Director and CEO, Alexander Scanlon. Welcome to the show. How are you doing? I know it's been a tough market, but you guys have put out some excellent news of late, and share price is showing that as well.
Well, first, thanks for having me. Yeah, look, we've had a pretty good run of it, relatively speaking. I think, as you noted, the market has been a very difficult market for gold, and that's been the case for the better part of 2 years now. I think one of the things that has set us apart, or is really starting to differentiate us, is the fact that we started a hard market very well capitalized. We have just consistently made progress. We've been playing through essentially the market pain, and we've put ourselves in a position to benefit from the turning market. We are feeling the market starting to turn in terms of investor attention. Of course, the gold market, gold prices are quite good, but with the success that we've had in parallel with the market starting to turn and attention coming back, I think that's brought a lot of new attention to us, and that's really been crystallized for us in the past 6 to 7 weeks by first a very significant resources upgrade at our sort of stage 2 expansion project. And then that led to a number of new inquiries, which actually had us just bring in 8 institutional funds to join our register and help sort of accelerate and propel us forward. So it's been a blessing. It's been a lot of hard work, but we've sort of really moved forward now.
Yes, it's amazing to see how there's a lot of things there you've kind of told us that are critical and key things that you have an excellent team and a board as well, for what you're doing. In a jurisdiction, I would say to any of the people watching, subscribers, Australia, like Canada, absolute incredible place for mining, and especially for world-renowned gold resources and discoveries. You've set yourself up for success, and it's one of these situations where it has come with that extension on the asset in that Gawler is it Gawler Creighton. Gawler Project, yeah. Sorry. Yes. So tell me, when that occurred, what was the thesis for looking there, and then with that kind of increase, that attracted a lot of smart money very quickly.
Yeah, look, the thesis is in some ways pretty simple. So we've essentially consolidated ownership of every significant historical producing and exploration asset in the Central Gawler Creighton. And this is a region in central South Australia it's sort of a world famous geological domain. This is where BHP has Olympic Dam, and they have just bought Oz Minerals, which was quite a large transaction, about a $10 billion transaction. So they've consolidated the iron oxide copper gold belt, which is a geological belt which sits just east of us. To the west, quite literally on the other side of the highway, is the Central Gawler Gold Province. That's what we've consolidated. So we've got about 5,000 square kilometers of ground, just over 1.25 million acres. We own the only gold mill in the region, and we've now built a 1.3 million ounce resource base there, and that is still growing. So for us, we're relatively young in the public market. We're 2 years old. We IPO'd in June of 2021. We spent 2021 and 2022 proving the geological thesis that, hey, look, there's 1.5 million ounces of historical high-grade gold production here, but no one's tied it together. No one's explained how and where it comes from in the bigger picture. We're going to do that. We're going to step back. We're not going to rush back into operations. We're going to put the work in. We've tied the pictures together. We've found multiple new gold zones. And now this year, in April, we put out a 189,000 ounce increase on our sort of what we call our stage 2, or sort of stage 2 expansion asset. And that really, I think, was sort of the rubber hitting the road for people to say, actually, okay, Now they've found all these new gold zones. Now they're converting these new gold zones into resource. Oh, and here's these 5 or 6 other ones they've found. And now we're going to go through and keep extending and converting those. So 2023 is really kind of a transformation year for us, where it's sort of proof in the pudding. We're going from backwards looking to forwards looking, and our advantage. And I think the reason that people really come onto the story now is it's not just that we've got, what we refer to as this stage 2 expansion asset. We also own an existing high grade, fully permitted open pit mine that has very little on the way of resources on it because we haven't converted it yet, but we actually found an entirely new gold zone there. And that is within trucking distance to a mill that we own. So while we're thinking about the big picture target, which is to be producing 150,000 ounces per annum in 5 years' time, when we start to convert some of these resources on the pit, we can actually bring forward operations and start a stage 1 operation. And that takes us from being an explorer developer to an operator. We don't need to build a mill because we already have one. That's a much, much lower cost, lower risk step. And then once we're doing that, that funds us to go into our stage 2 expansion. So we can get from 0 to 150,000 with much, much lower risk on a stage basis. And that, I think, is that's the story that's being crystallized. That's what's sort of becoming real for people.
And with the mill, I know maybe it's a little bit early, but what state is it in? How much do you think roughly would it take to get that up and running? Is it kind of like just it needs a little bit of refurbishment and it's ready to go, or?
Correct. It's a recommissioning, not a reconstruction. So the mill was last operating in September of 2018. So it's been on care and maintenance ever since. We actually had a team that specializes in doing startups and shutdowns and workovers come over and inspect the ball mills. So the ball mills are usually the long lead time item, and one of the most costly things. Our ball mills are in excellent condition. So for us, it's essentially replacing what we call the sort of the hard consumables, pumps and motors and these types of things. A nice coat of paint, do the Dulux rebuild, and get it going again.
And with that Tunkillia deposit, this, like you said, it's open pit mineable. It's pretty shallow. Are you thinking? I mean, it's what, 2 kilometers long? Is that about right at this stage?
Yeah. So that the main deposit that's there is called the 223 deposit, and that's 2 kilometers long. Correct.
Yes, that alone. So are you testing further at depth? Is that kind of the idea, or is it getting wider, or is it both in all directions?
It's both. So we've extended it to depth. When we were, so the historical drilling there was quite shallow because it was done at a time when the gold price was quite low. So you can only drill so deep if gold is only so cheap, quite literally. So our thesis was that there would be naturally depth extensions, but we also believed we would find parallel structures, because where historical explorers were following a structure down, we suspected we'd find structures behind that. And so we drilled through those and we found repeating structures. So it's getting wider and deeper. And in the center of this deposit, we now have a zone that we've mapped out that's about 300 meters long. It's got 80 to 100 meters of mining width. So a very bulk efficient open pit, but it's also got a high grade zone where you have mining blocks that are grading up to 5 to 10 grams per ton. So the geometry of this is also starting to get very interesting for us.
And also with that, which I think is pretty critical, is that your all-in cost is pretty low. That's pretty shocking. I mean,
yeah, it was the cost of extension, if you will. And people use the term discovery cost, but that would be unfair. We've extended a known resource, but the cost of doing that was $12 Australian per new ounce. So about $8 or $9 US, and that was an all-in cost. A lot of people will quote the drilling cost effectively. That was our drilling and our assaying and our labor and logistics and even our desktop software and resource modeling. So this was very, very very cost efficient growth. And we have 3 new resource zones that we found in the past 18 months that we're going to look to try to convert into new mineral resources later this year and early next.
I mean, that alone, I could just see so many the funds looking at you thinking, holy smokes, these guys are definitely efficient at putting their money in the ground, which obviously you want to see. But when you're getting the results as well, I can see also why you wanted to get these funds in And people, I think, understand that here too when they see like a critical name in the industry who wants in on a gold deal. You're gonna find a way to get them in because you want to have the strongest money behind the strongest team and the strongest project. So it's
Yeah.
great to see that you're able to include people that will help you grow and get you to the next stage and the next stage because they're specifically funded that way.
Look, exactly right. And these are specialist investors. They're not only they're mining specialists, but they're also gold specialist investors. So they're looking at the broader market, and they're looking at more than just the gold price. They're looking at all of the global geopolitical factors that they think are driving the future for gold. But they're also very practical in their thinking. Their strategy is to come in and essentially provide jet fuel to a machine they see operating well, right? I mean, it's a lower risk bet for them. The existence of our infrastructure, which is a fully permitted gold plant, the existence of our mining lease, they said, look, we love what you're doing with the big picture, but if you take this additional capital, we would be very happy to see this spent accelerating high grade resources on that open pit. So now we'll actually fast forward some of that nearer term or potential nearer term mineralization. And we already have drilling on that pit where we have sort of 5 meters at 40 and 4 meters at 60 grams per ton, very, very high grade stuff. So the distance to jump between today and even putting 50,000 ounces on that pit, it's a much smaller endeavor than finding something new. But that's mineralization that we quite literally have proven metallurgy and logistics and infrastructure. That becomes commercial mineralization very quickly. And we found a brand new 300-meter long high-grade gold zone sitting just behind the pit wall. So everyone's pretty interested to see that go forward. And if we can bring names in like this, this is Argonaut's new gold fund. This is Ixios Asset Management, Collins Street's new gold fund, Ballingall gold fund. You can bring in names like that. Yes, you're going to have real momentum behind you, and we can accelerate a stage one operation potentially, which would potentially dramatically re-rate the company and then fund the stage 2 expansion.
And you kind of mentioned that with that funding, you've got quite a bit of cash still on hand. I mean, there's more than enough ammunition to do, especially at the cost that you guys are doing things, to advance things rapidly. What tell me how much you have right now in the pool to use, and then what are some like really short term, say 3 months and then maybe 6 month things that people should be focused on to see if you're hitting milestones moving forward?
Okay. Look, there's a couple of things. The cash answer is sort of multifaceted. So one thing for people to remember is one of the reasons we're very efficient with our use of capital, but also our treasury, is that we are really an advanced asset manager. We own not only a gold mill, but we own multiple villages and camps and all these things. So we actually actively monetize our assets. In the past 12 months, we've earned $500,000 in revenues just renting our camps to third parties. So we IPO'd with a $15 million budget 2 years ago. Fast forward 2 years, we still have, over $7 million of that cash. And that's because we've generated in that time over $5 million net non-dilutive cash from these proceeds. That work is ongoing. So we had, as of the 31st of March, we had 8.3 million in cash. With the announcement of this capital raise to raise 3.5 million, we've sort of clarified that our pro forma estimated 30 June cash is about it will be north of $10 million. One of the other things we're doing, we're actually currently processing high-grade gold concentrates. So we've started looking at our mill for the purposes of optimizing it for potential future restart. We started cleaning out areas of the mill. We actually took down the gravity circuit that we think we can optimize. We cleaned out the ball mills, the gravity circuit, the gold room. We took about 10 tons of high-grade gold concentrates out of that. The first 1/3 of that assayed around 3,000 grams per ton. And so we're processing the other 2/3, but there's $1 million worth of gold in that. So if we think about $10 million post-placement, we're doing a share purchase plan as well. And then the gold sales, we could end up in that $13 to $15 million range. That gives us a tremendous amount of firepower when you consider that for the 32,000 meters of drilling that we've done and 5 or 6 geophysical programs over 2 years. Average quarterly cash burn is less than $1 million Australian per quarter. That's a standstill cash burn for most companies. So yeah, that puts us in a very, very good position from a cash standpoint.
Yeah, that is. I mean, people, when they're looking at gold projects, and a lot of people are, and we haven't really touched on too much, but luckily we've talked about gold a lot on my show, as people are paying more attention to it, is there's so many out there. And there's so many, they're looking in northern BC, they're looking in Canada, the Abitibi, and there's a lot to pick from. And for a generalist who's looking, they kind of scratch their head and they're starting to learn that, okay, I need to find the best stewards of the money, the projects, who's backing them, and all these things. And the little I've learned, that maybe you'd agree, is that you have to have all of it. You can't just have one of three. Like, you can't just have, oh, we've got a great team, and then there's no asset, or the money behind us isn't backing us very strong. If you have all of that, which you guys appear to have, it not only gives you a lot of wiggle room, it's showing to someone who's a generalist that, oh wow, the due diligence these funds would have had to done to look at you guys, as well as if they look at the board of directors, the management breakup, which also alluded to this being kind of like an asset management play more, those significant backgrounds, it starts to kind of make sense that why the team was assembled a certain way and why you're attracting, specific funds as well.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, it really is all about the people, right? If you look at our platform, it's not just the assets, it is the people. We have in our board of management, board of directors, and our senior management, we have comfortably north of 200 years of experience exploring for, discovering, permitting, financing, building, and operating assets with a particular pedigree on gold and South Australia, right? So we're a very, very strong South Australian story. We are looking to recreate the primary gold industry here. South Australia actually owns 25% of Australia's known gold mineral resources. So we have a huge target to hit here, and a lot of available mineralization. But if you have a good platform, you have a clear purpose, i.e. a true development objective, and you can demonstrate consistent performance, yes, it might take some time, but people start to recognize that. And, one of the advantages, of the platform for us is where we are. And you referenced, some phenomenal geology up in Canada, right? There are some amazing deposits, but there's $1 billion worth of infrastructure that needs to go in for them to become commercialized. I hate to put it in these terms. We are a nice, boring landscape. We are in the middle of South Australia, in flat landscape. The highway runs past our projects. We have $200 billion of rail running through our projects. I mean, literally the arterial railway from Sydney to Perth runs straight through the middle of our project. So
Wow.
accessibility is really key. And the cost of us getting to the project, the cost of us drilling, the cost of us building is just much, much lower. And I've spent before becoming a public company managing director, I spent my career before that investing in and financing these things. And it's really a question of what is actually achievable. You can have a huge NPV, but if the probability is 1%, you're much better off targeting an NPV of, that might be smaller, but you've got a 60% probability. And that's what we're doing, right? It's really what's an achievable target, and then how do we mitigate the risk of getting there? That is how you create a high expected value, an achievable expected value. So we're perhaps a little bit boring and institutional in the way that we think about things, but we are asset managers that happen to be running a drill, as opposed to just kind of spray and pray and hoping for tailwinds from the market. We are building these assets, so whatever the market wants to do, it's going to do, but we're going to be operating.
Well, those tend to be the more refreshing stories as far as I'm concerned, because there's lots of fly-by-night, there's lots of big elephant hunting, and there's lots of excitement out there with some stories. But when you can assemble a team and you can see the numbers that, assuming things go to plan, and you have a significant discovery, you grow it out even more, it still has to be economic at the end of the day. If asset managers are putting money into it, they want to see if this continues along this path, can it make economic sense to us? And sometimes a big story may not make as much sense. They start adding the numbers and they think the helicopter rides in, the tunnel through here, the roads, all that.
Yeah.
The blue sky becomes
the capital moat is unsurpassable unless you're already a $20 billion company. That is quite literally the case, right? Yeah.
Now, before we wrap it up, you're an Australian company, ASX, so that's fine
Mhm.
to some extent for Canadians. But what's another way? Are you looking at any other exchanges? Is there any other way Canadians can look to get it to look at your company and not only follow it, but if they're interested in purchasing it, going about that?
Good question. Yeah, actually, we've had a lot of conversations on this front. So as you can tell from from my speech, I'm not Australian. I'm from North America. I grew up in Seattle. So we spent a lot of time in North American markets and had conversations with investors both in the United States and in Canada. And obviously, Canadian investors probably have more liberty to invest globally than American investors do. What we are looking at doing is actually potentially opening an OTC QB listing, essentially as an entree or a sort of a foray into the North American markets. That seems to be from all the discussions that we've had, and in particular, specific investors that we have then sort of surveyed about this. That seems to be the doorway that most people, or the most people, can actually say, I may have difficulty investing on the ASX, but I know I can invest in the OTC, and I want to buy your shares. So please let me know when you do that. So that's a really good start. And then I think as we grow, particularly as we go into stage one operations, and maybe we're producing 40 to 60,000 ounces per annum, you could be looking for a significant push in terms of the re-rating or the equity valuation of the company. Then we could look to something that looks more like a main exchange, something like a New York Stock Exchange, right? But OTC is a really good stepping stone for us, and I think it will provide value to those who want to actually get involved in the story without having to come up with creative ways to invest internationally.
No, that's great. A lot of Canadian investors are quite honestly used to that as well. I mean, the crowd that are into mining and understand mining, they're very comfortable with that. So that is wonderful. Listen, this has been great. I always love, like you said, kind of more boring, methodical stories that are well understood. You're taking your time, you're patient with it, but you're getting great results, and they're economic. I mean, that's at the end of the day, it may not be the huge elephant hunting. We're looking for 50 million ounces in the middle of nowhere. That attracts some other people. This is methodical. It's looking fantastic. You're out of the gate very strong and attracting all the eyes that you want to attract. And I'm very excited to keep on watching to see what news comes out over the next little while, as well as the results and the drilling and the targets that you're looking at moving forward.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Like we're happy to be doing well. As I mentioned, we will keep publishing a lot of news coming up. We're going to have more processing results from these gold concentrates. We're going to be drilling really hard again from end of July. And we are looking at having not one, but two more resource updates by the end of the year at both the stage 2 asset Tunkillia, but also that potential stage 1 operation at Tarcoola. So it's going to be very, very busy. And yep, please, keep an eye on us.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Likewise. Thank you.